More thoughts on the deep state that exists here in the United States. These thoughts are from the book of Isaiah, Isaiah chapter 25. Isaiah 25. Starting with verse 1, O Lord, you are my God. I will exalt you. I will praise you and give thanks to your name. For you have done miraculous things, plans formed long, long ago, fulfilled with perfect faithfulness. For you have made a city into a heap of trash. You have made a fortified city into a ruin. A palace of foreigners is no longer a city, and it will never be rebuilt. The deep state is a city within a city. It's a government within a government. Now, when we read the word city here in Isaiah, I don't believe it's simply referring to a city like St. Louis or Nashville, Seattle, Washington. We're talking about a cohesive, coherent, organized, highly controlled, highly governed body of people who have aligned themselves, who have formed allegiance toward a particular dogma, a certain morality that is contrary to the will of the people of the United States, that is contrary to the Constitution of the United States. The deep state, a highly organized, highly fortified, well-oiled machine, a city. The deep state is more than simply a city. It's a country within a country, a government within a government. But for the purposes of what I'd like to share with you, I will use the term Isaiah used in chapter 25, which I do believe would apply to the deep state. We'll use the term city. This is the final destination of the deep state. A heap of trash. A pile of dung. I'm going to keep saying this, that Hashem has heard our prayers. Much like when he heard the prayers of the children of Israel who were in captive by Pharaoh and the Egyptians of long ago, and delivered them from their captivity with a strong hand. He has heard the prayers of his people living in this country and throughout the world, crying to be free from these evil men and women who have taken over, who have covertly subverted the United States. The deep state operatives. God has heard our prayer. He's heard our cry. He's going to deliver us. Mark it. He is going to make the deep state into a pile of rubbish. You may ask, how is he going to do it? I don't know. Do you think he would reveal that to anyone anyway? I know he wouldn't reveal it to me. I can have a big mouth. But it's coming. Look at this verse. A palace of foreigners is no longer a city. These are the words of Isaiah. A palace of foreigners. If that doesn't describe deep state, I don't know what does. A palace, that's where the government resides. They've taken over Washington, D.C. They've taken over the Capitol. They've taken over the White House. They've taken over the Supreme Court. They live in the palace. They operate inside the palace. Foreigners. What's a foreigner? I'm quoting Isaiah. Foreigners are non-citizens. You cannot call members of the deep state who have taken over this country Americans. They are not. Robert Mueller is not an American. General McMaster is not an American. In fact, the dude's a Wahhabist. I don't care how pretty and proper he looks in that general's outfit he wears. It's a fraud. That man is not an American. He is a foreigner. Bill and Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton, they are not Americans. Are they? Would you call them Americans? Do they stand for the Constitution of the United States? Hell no. They wipe their rear ends with it. They're foreigners. But they sit in the palace. They sit in the high places. They sit in the places of authority. No more. I'm just quoting the Spirit of God from Isaiah 25. No more. A palace of foreigners is no longer a city, is no longer a coherent, organized, governed body of people. President Trump said something in the wake of the Charlottesville incident, and he called for all Americans to unite. And I believe he was referencing the neo-Nazis and the Antifa people, calling them, they're not Americans. A neo-Nazi, a Ku Klux Klan idiot, is not an American. In America, we recognize every man as equal before God, no matter their race, no matter their ethnicity. Do we really have to go over this again? Those aren't Americans. And Antifa is made up primarily of communists, where the state is God. America is not founded upon the state being our God and source. They're not Americans. There's nothing to unite with. That's okay, though, because Hashem is making a very clear distinction for those who are willing to see between those who are actual Americans and those who aren't. And our government, particularly in Washington, D.C., as you know, has been taken over by those who are not. A palace of foreigners. Verse 4 in Isaiah 25 reads that Hashem has been a stronghold. God has been a stronghold for the helpless. He is a stronghold for the poor in his distress. He is a shelter from the storm. He is a shade from the heat. For the breath of tyrants is like a rainstorm against a wall. The breath of tyrants is relentless. But the Most High is a stronghold, is a tower of defense for those of us who are helpless in the face of this deep state. And for the sake of his covenant that he has with the few of us who cling to him, the palace of foreigners, the palace of non-Americans who pose as Americans, but they are not, they are false. They are under a curse. They are doomed. Their minions and enablers are doomed as well. I include the fake news. And this city of non-Americans, this organized body of tyrants and Benedict Arnolds and traitors are going to fall by the hand of our God to never be rebuilt. I encourage you to read this entire chapter. I believe there may be references to the rapture in this chapter. I think that's a real possibility. But either way, when I read Isaiah 25, I smell the doom that is soon approaching upon those wicked, idolatrous men and women who thought they could take over the United States.